Hi, so this is part 4 of my video series documenting my experience purchasing a New York City co-op apartment. And in part 3, I was talking about the differences between co-ops and condos and what you need to look out for when purchasing a co-op. And in this one, in part 4, I'm going to talk about real estate agents and lawyers and why they're important and what they do. When we got to the point where we wanted a real estate agent, we already knew the neighborhood that we wanted to purchase in. We knew that it was a co-op that we were going to target, and we did online searches for the neighborhood for real estate agents. The reason for that is because New York City is so specific. Like, every borough is different. Every neighborhood is a little bit different. So we wanted someone who was just very intimately familiar with the neighborhood we were looking to live in. And we wanted someone who was a full-time real estate agent and who had plenty of experience. And so we went about looking for that. And we found a person based off of online reviews. And then we basically interviewed him. We didn't call it an interview, but we met him at his office and we talked to him. We met him after work hours and we talked to him for like an hour or two, just asking him lots and lots of questions because we didn't know very much. Like, we knew a fair amount, but we didn't know everything. So we learned a lot about co-ops and the differences between co-ops and what the application process might be like, what the interview process might be like. We also had to explain to him what we were looking for from an apartment so he could potentially look for listings that we would be interested in. And we just, through talking to him, we were able to feel out whether or not we would be a good fit for each other. Fit is very important because the real estate agent is our representative and is going to be, we didn't know it at the time, but all of our communication was filtered through our agent, and he was filtering our communication back to other people. So he did all the negotiations when we were bidding. He was the person who would feel out, other agents to know if there had been other bids on an apartment, if it was still available, so that he could then strategize regarding like how to do the bidding. If we wanted to bid, he knew so much. He had 20 years of experience. He was also very honest with us. He was raised in New York City, so he has that New York honesty, brutal honesty, but he was still very professional. He was very reachable via email and by phone. So he was wonderful that way. But he had so much knowledge and experience, especially in the neighborhood we were looking in. When we were going out to these different open houses and visiting apartments, he knew most of the agents we were encountering. He knew their reputation, and he had worked with many of them before. He knew most of the co-ops we were going to visit. Like, he knew the buildings, he knew the history of the buildings. And when I say the history of the buildings, he knew the general reputation of them. He knew kind of the turnover rates and the character of the building and the co-op, and whether or not they were doing renovations or expecting to do certain kinds of renovations. Like, he just had his ear to the ground and knew a lot of things that we could have never figured out in the time that we were searching, because we were not full-time real estate agents with 20 years of experience. That's why you get an agent. And he guided us through the whole co-op application process by like telling us, because we had a lot of questions when we were filling it out, like what does this mean, what does that mean? And so he would answer all of our questions very carefully and recommend the order of things, what to include, what not to include. And he also wrote this really wonderful cover letter for us that basically painted the picture of who we were as applicants to the building. And we would have never known to get a cover letter or to write a cover letter because we'd never gone through this process before. But he knew that, and he knew how to write it, and he just guided us through the whole thing, and he knew so much about the neighborhood and about the buildings and about the people and the agents. we just felt like we were in really good hands, and he loved negotiating, so we were not afraid of him being a shrinking violet when it came to negotiations. Um, so overall, he added so much for us, and he was so important. It's possible that you don't need an agent if you are purchasing from a new construction, or if money is not so much an issue and you want to buy a condo. But if you're buying a co-op, I would highly recommend a real estate agent, because they're not going to know how to ask questions of the other agent, the selling agent. They're going to know how to negotiate. They're going to just know a lot of things that my husband and I, as non-lawyer, non-real estate people who are doing this for the first time, could not have known and would not have done well. New York City is not an easy market to test yourself in. And so yeah, we really valued it, and we found him online. And yeah, one important thing to note is that you should get your own real estate agent. You should not rely on the selling agent to be your own agent, because there is a conflict of interest. Real estate agents in a transaction usually get 5 or 6% of the sale price or purchase price, and the selling agent and the buying agent usually split that 5 or 6%. It could be 3 and 3, or 3 and 2, or 4 and 2. I don't really know how that gets figured out, but they split the commission. If there's only one agent, they get the full thing. They get the full 5 or 6%, and they have no incentive to really work hard on your behalf, because the agent would be negotiating with himself if there's only one agent on it, and he's or she is representing both sides. So it's really in your best interest to have your own representation, so that they can take care of your own. They can best take care of your interests and not be worried about anyone else's interest. So yeah, and also when we were talking to our real estate agent, I forgot to mention this. So we spoke to him for an hour or two before deciding that he was the right person for us. He never asked us to sign anything. We never had to sign any paperwork. We never had to say that he was going to be the only agent that we worked with. We never said any of that, and he never forced us to do anything, and we really appreciated that. So I can't speak to how other agents would be if they would ask you to sign anything, like exclusivity contracts or anything like that. I had to do it once when I was trying to find a rental apartment, but I only did it that one time. And it was the first time I was trying to rent in New York City. But this agent, when we were buying, did not ask us that. So I don't know if it's common for other agents to make you sign paperwork, but it's something to look out for, that you don't have to sign paperwork. But enough about agents. Lawyers. We got a lawyer through a referral from a trusted friend. We luckily did not have to search for a lawyer, so I actually am not too certain how to best search for a lawyer. I assume that if we did have to, we would have done an online search and tried our best, but we wouldn't have had the time to meet with the lawyer and really vet them, because once you're through the bidding process, and your offer has been accepted, they immediately ask who your lawyer is. And once your offer has been selected, they start to want to work on the contract immediately, and you need a lawyer for that. And for us, the lawyer was really, really important as well. We really liked her. She was very professional. She was always very fast with her responses via email, and seemed to know her shit really well. So we were really happy with her. And we also didn't know what a lawyer did until we actually engaged with one. And the very first thing that the lawyer does after, you might have to pay like a deposit on the lawyer, and then the rest of their payment comes at closing. But one thing that the lawyer did immediately was that they immediately try to get access to the co-op's financials and meeting minutes. And what they do that in order to assess the financial strength of the co-op and understand whether or not there are going to be future increases in maintenance costs or potential assessment fees based off of large scale renovations or something like that. So they are able to look at that information. As a buyer, you do not have access to that, so you rely on your lawyer to do that work for you. But they'll also look out for, when they're looking through meeting minutes, they're also kind of trying to understand how the co-op works and what the co-op is like. If there's if it's documented within the meetings, if there's a lot of arguments, if the board works, if there's contention within the co-op board, if there are potential issues with your particular apartment, if people have complained a lot about your particular apartment, if people in general like to complain about things in the co-op. From what I understand, lawyers can kind of see that when going through if it's listed. So lawyers can do that for you. And lawyers are also going to guide you through the contract process. They're going to work with the seller's lawyers to help craft the contract, explain to you what the contract is. The lawyer is going to try and protect your interests from a legal point of view, and also from a financial point of view, protecting you through the contract and through the riders in the contract. And our lawyer, she also had a lot of experience. She had 20 years of experience in real estate. She was a full-time lawyer and specialized in real estate, New York City real estate, because New York City real estate, hopefully, like I've been telling you all along, is different and specialized. So you do want someone who's full-time. And she just knew a lot. We had some hiccups along the way that I'll talk about later, but she was able to help us through those, tell us what is supposed to happen, who is supposed to know. She would try to work on her end to help move things along. From what we could gather, she had good relations with the other lawyers that we had to work with. So there would be sellers' lawyers, but also bank attorneys, the bank's lawyers. And also the lawyer would have to work with the management office as well. When I didn't mention this before, but the management office, co-ops sometimes, I don't know if they always do, will use a management office or management company to run the day-to-day operations of the co-op. So the management company will hire the super or the porters and will do the day-to-day stuff of if people are filing requests the super, it kind of goes through the management company. They will come up with the ways to help organize that. They will post in the elevator, for example, new rules or COVID protocols, or they might not come up with the protocols, but they will help to notify the rest of the co-op about things, and they just help run it smoothly, because so that the members of the co-op board don't have to do it. So it gets offloaded, and the management company will have to work with the lawyers. So if you have a lawyer, the lawyer will have to work with the management company. And it's very important to get your own lawyer. So we found ours through referral. if you have a real estate agent, the real estate agent will have knowledge of other lawyers, but it's best if you don't go through your lawyer, you don't go through your agent to get a lawyer, because there is a potential conflict of interest there. It's in the interest of the real estate agent to close on as many real estate transactions as possible. If the lawyer and the real estate agent have a close association, it's possible that they have such a close association and the agent likes to refer to that lawyer because the lawyer helps the agent get the transaction through so that the agent can then get paid. So there's a bit of a conflict of interest there if your lawyer is not fighting first and foremost in your interest, but is more interested in making sure that the transaction completes. So I'm not saying that the agent that we found would have done that, but it's best that we were able to get someone unaffiliated with our agent. I'm trying to think, what else did she do? Oh, right, and probably the most important part of the lawyer is that the lawyer was there at closing. So she helped to schedule the closing and coordinate with the different parties, and also she was present at closing to walk us through all of the different paperwork we were signing. So she was really helpful because my husband and I are not lawyers and have never gone through this process, and so we were relying on a specialist who knew her shit well to tell us what was happening and why. So yeah, and she was just super professional, so we really liked her. One thing that we were surprised by was that the real estate agents, they get a percentage of the sale price / purchase price, depending on which side you're on. So they get a cut of that, 2 or 3%, depending on what side they're on. The lawyer gets a fixed rate, and so for us, we put down a down payment, and then we finished it later, and that dollar amount for us was much lower than what the agent was going to get paid. So to me, I think a lawyer was totally worth it, because relative to everything else, she wasn't that expensive. I'm trying to think if there's anything else about lawyers. I mean, we just really liked the people that we worked with, and it was important for us to think about them as our team, and they were the people who were representing us because we never spoke directly to anybody else. Our lawyer worked with the other lawyers, our agent worked with the other agents, and you have to choose the right people you can trust, people who you think are competent and really good at their jobs, and that's what we did. What we didn't do was choose a great bank. We should have spent more time looking at banks and comparing different banks potentially. I think it would have been difficult still to vet banks because it's sometimes hard to know. But we didn't vet anyone. We just went with a bank that had a good rate, and that was a mistake. The bank that we went with was a large national bank that everyone has heard of, and I'm going to talk about this at length in the other videos, but they did not do a good job. So when you're choosing and selecting the people you're working with, be careful. And in my opinion, the agent and the lawyer were so important. We couldn't have done it without them. So yeah, I would highly recommend, if you're going the New York City co-op route, to definitely engage in agents and lawyers. All right, the next video I'm going to talk about is the bidding process and contracts. Yay! Working my way, closer and closer to closing. So yeah, there's going to be some information, maybe some interesting information for you in that next video. But anyway, thank you for watching. Hopefully you learned something, Um, yeah, and that's about it. All right, bye.